All right, thanks. Good evening to everybody, and beautiful summer day today. Gosh.
It really is.
And so we'll call the meeting to order. Tom Ayer will not be able to join us. He did contact us, and I guess he's traveling, so he unexpectedly couldn't be here. He did give us some input on our, I shouldn't say light agenda. We did let him know if something came up unexpectedly that would be appropriate for him to weigh in, and we obviously would hold off. First item is additions, deletions, changes to the agenda. Yes.
I just have a question of this 18th of July in regards to Appendix E. After watching the recording, looking at your finals.
This is for the allocation?
Yes, for both water and wastewater. There seems to be just two questions. First question is, when it comes to the water, the allocable capacity was to be 11,873. Category 1 got 5,000. Category 2 got 5,000. But Category 1 in the motion got 1,891. And mathematically, that's...
Can I see
You
the sheet?
sure can, yeah.
And that-
Say category three in
Three.
the motion, that would have been an error then.
Category 3
yeah.
got the remainder, and out of 11, so that's 5, and 1873. So
Right,
that-
instead of 18, it shouldn't have been 18, you guys read it as 1891, and
Oh.
so I
Oh,
just,
that's what I have here, that's the number you
Okay.
gave
okay,
Phil.
so that, are we
I
okay?
think I was doing that math on the fly with my
That's fine,
calculator.
no problem, okay, I just didn't wanna, you got it, all
So
right.
that should be 1873?
It should be 1873,
Okay, I will correct
Versus,
that
what did we
then.
say,
1891.
1891?
And that's
Do
category
we need
3.
like a
yes.
friendly amendment to correct that, maybe?
If it was it mine, I believe? Was it my motion?
Hold on.
Yes,
Then I will make an amendment to that motion to correct that number as we just spoke of. Who seconded it?
Tom.
So, can someone else other than Tom second it?
I'll second it.
But can you?
Yeah.
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 Or we can make a new
Make a new motion, yeah, we can make a
It's
new
just a
motion.
matter of, yeah,
Yeah.
a few gallons.
If you'd
all
like,
right.
I can make a new
So,
motion.
Yeah, let's make a new motion.
That seems cleaner at this point
Yeah.
since he's not there. So I don't have it in front of me, but if you want to read the motion, I'll,
Yeah, I'm looking for the numbers. Oh, here it is. Okay, so the motion would be to change what would be put into category 3 from 1,891 to
873.
1,873.
so I make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? I'll blame myself. I think I did that quickly
No,
on the
no
fly.
need for blame.
All those in favor, and I don't think Tom's
I got a comment.
concerned about that.
So,
But go
based
ahead.
on how I voted before, are we re-upping the same motion, or is this just to amend the?
It's a new motion.
It's a new motion.
It's a new motion.
Yeah. It's a new quantity for that category 3.
Right. Okay.
It's still 5, and now it's corrected by a few gallons.
Our
okay.
intent is now correct instead of,
The numbers add up.
Yeah.
yep.
Are you okay with that then, to go forward with the vote?
Yeah, I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure it was the whole thing and not just the number
Right.
change.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye?
Aye. All those opposed?
I opposed.
Okay. And no abstention, so that now is 3-1 with Tom not here.
Okay, and then the second one was in the wastewater. There was an allocable capacity of 67,812. And in category 2, when looking at the minutes, and once again referring to the video of it, there was a comment of, well, we were going to vote on what we have in 5D of the agenda, of what was uploaded, and no numbers were stated.
Right.
However, when you add, if category 2 had 20,000, 16,000 for residential and 7,562 does not add up to 20,000. It would appear that, and I'll let you see this, Phil, category 3 enterprise maybe got put in category 2 enterprise.
Yeah, so this.
Should have
this is
been
the
maybe just
number that was supposed to be
4,000.
there. I think they also, this accidentally got in there too, rather than it being
4,000.
4,000, it should have been 50 for the 20. So these numbers are
Okay.
accurate, add up to that, but it was just this.
So category 2, under enterprise, should be 4,000 versus 7,562, which is the same number shown in category
Yeah.
3.
So,
But there were no number, as your
yeah,
minutes.
it was, because Tom just said to
Yeah.
approve it as the draft copy, so,
Right.
yeah.
So I think when Eric or whatever put it in that, I think he just accidentally put the same
So what's the number for category 2?
4,000.
4,000 in enterprise.
4,000 even?
Yes.
Yes, 16 at residential, 4 in enterprise.
The total was 20,000.
And it's in category 3, is it still 7,562?
Yes.
Yes.
So I think if we were to move forward, a possible motion would be to correct the allocation numbers that will be in Appendix E for wastewater from the previous motion, which is 10,000 in Category 1, Category 2, a total of 20,000, of which 16,000 is for residential and 4,000 is for enterprise. And Category 3, the remainder, 37,812, of which residential is 30,250 and enterprise is 7,562.
I can make that motion.
I'll make that motion.
I beat you to it. You can second.
Okay.
He seconded it.
All right. Any discussion on that, Jeff?
No, because I approved that one last time.
All right, and I think Tom wouldn't mind. It just seems like we're correcting our numbers here,
Yeah.
not making a significant change to our intent. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. So that motion passed.
Illustrate
Thank
that.
you for
Yeah, a lot of meetings.
checking our
Yeah,
i's
thank
Oh,
you
you're
very
welcome.
much.
crossing our t's.
No problem. Thank you.
And I still need to sign
Signature
those.
one.
Yeah, so
Clean up.
Okay.
we'll clean it up and,
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
perfect, thank you.
All right. Besides that, additions, deletions, changes to the agenda? I don't think so. We do have on, as item 10, to consider a motion going into executive session. The purpose potentially would be, it's a legal issue, to discuss our counsel for the Hannaford's court case. Is seeking the select board's opinion on a couple of items. So I expect we'll go into executive session for item 10, and we'll stop the broadcast. If there's any decisions made, they would be made outside of executive session and be reflected in our minutes. All right. Item 3, update on trailhead safety concerns. This, we met last time, 2 weeks ago, concerning safety around the public parking of some trailheads, which we recently had a homicide, a murder, quite uncharacteristic for Hinesburg. And I think it was raised whether those areas are safe and should Hinesburg do anything about these public areas. We asked Chief Cambridge to come and just fill us in on the problems we've had and any history we've had, and then we can have brief discussion, I guess. Last time we met, we had a discussion, some representatives of the Trails Committee, and I think maybe Forest Committee, and maybe one or two other residents who talked about this, whether we should take any actions or not. I think the select board said we'd hold off to see what really happened and what might need to get done. And it was also said, and rightfully so, that anyone, from this crime, neighbors or anybody else might feel quite frightened, and we should take that seriously. So, all right, thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
So I think one thing was, what's the history of these areas, that particular area and any of the other parking areas around the trailheads?
I know it was said that there was a significant history there, and there just isn't. Our cases don't support that. And we went back on Gilman Road to as far as 2006, and that also covered the start of the trailhead, which was 2011. And we haven't had any reports, cases generated, neighbor complaints. Over the years, we had responded to gunfire or gunshots on Gilman Road, which is not unusual. It had nothing to do with the incident, and it's very common, not just for Gilman Road, but for any road in Hinesburg. So I have no doubt that gunshots will continue at this point. And we've also been getting more calls for gunshots in different areas of Hinesburg because of this incident, but again, unrelated.
And it's noted, shooting your guns on your property, target shooting or whatnot, it's not against the law. So people can do that, and they do that, and occasionally there's complaints about them.
We respond to it even though it's not against the law. We usually just make sure that they're shooting in a safe direction. But again, it's not something that we're required to respond to because it is illegal.
Okay, and if I called and complained about there's somebody parked at the end of the road and they're very suspicious, or in a turnaround or in a parking lot, would that become a case? Would there be a record of that?
It would. If there was a call for a vehicle currently in a lot, we would respond to it. We would create a case. Dispatch would create a case. The only scenario that I could think of where a suspicious vehicle may not have a case created would be if the person said it was a half hour ago, the car's gone, or even the car just left. We may still go to the area and just check around, but it's possible that a case wouldn't be generated. But more than likely it would.
Okay, so you're saying there's not a lot of history of much happening in these areas, and I think if there were a lot of complaints or a particular area that there were complaints, you would have some records of it, and they don't exist.
Not just that, but no one remembers from the department either going there for anything specific.
Okay.
So just to clarify, you said there's not a lot of history. I'm hearing there is no history.
There is
Is
no
that-
history. I'm not going to say that there hasn't been suspicious vehicles there, but we haven't gotten called for it. I would assume that if there was a suspicious car and there was a neighbor that had concerns, that they would have called us. And I would encourage them now to call us. Of course we would go out and make sure everything's okay. And we've upped our patrol on the road, and we have specifically not just drove by it, we've actually gone in and stayed there. I was there myself for 20 minutes one day, a half hour another day. And in that time, not only did I not see any vehicles in the parking lot, but I didn't see a single car drive by on Gilman Road. So
I would like to place this conversation for a moment in the context of what we're all assuming here. And I don't think we can assume anything just yet because, as I know it, unless you know differently, the state police haven't closed this case, and it's still open and considered unresolved. So suspicious activity incites a lot of other imaginary things that we might be looking for or thinking might be happening. We're not seeing the data prove that out. So I go back to what really happened here. We don't know. And until we really know, we do know for sure a person lost their life with a gun. The medical examiner gave us that information, but everything else is, and I don't want to put a value on it, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise, but reactionary to something that we're not finding. Can you speak to the context of that and sort of rewrite this conversation a little bit?
I have not been in touch with state police regarding the incident. Yeah, I'm just letting it unfold on their end, and
Because it's their case, not yours.
It is their case,
Yeah.
and it's no longer our case. We transferred it to the state police. Before we did that, and while we did that, I transferred that. My main concern was, is there a security issue? And we believed, and we still believe, that there is not a security issue. And we're gonna go with the belief also, and we can't say definitely until the case is closed, but that this is an isolated incident, and that safety is not a concern for Gilman Road or for that trailhead. So we go from there. And my only concern is, if all of these years, if something was happening, I just would have thought if there was that much concern that we would have gotten phone calls.
And your records go back, in this case, of looking for incidents to '06, you said?
We went back to 06.
So you went back 13 years and
Yes.
didn't find anything.
Okay. So one other thing, one property owner was concerned, has raised a concern that maybe the parking lot, goes on to their property or whatnot, and I don't know if you want to just fill us in on maybe what you found so far.
Yeah, so far, I identified a couple of survey pins. It does look like a small corner of the parking lot is on a neighboring property, and then some of the stormwater, so the culvert. So those are some things that we're gonna look at and see if we can remedy and so we'll have to continue work on that. Identifying, making sure what's the town's and what's the neighbor's property.
So Renee and I talked about it, and, my suggestion was to continue to finalize where the actual property lines are, come up with a proposal that makes sure our parking area and any of the appropriate drainage or whatever stays within our property unless the abutting property owner is willing to allow the culvert or whatever, find a solution to it. And then we had a little discussion about maybe it'd be appropriate to put a simple fence, maybe it's a little cedar split rail fence, or something that, to make sure that if people use that parking area, they know this is where it is and it's not, on any of the abutting neighbor's property. So I think we do that, and we also discussed with Anthony that maybe we'll look at what the ordinances are around these parking areas. So are there rules right now that exist? We're not sure. Probably not, but might be appropriate to have some basic rules. How about noise, or how late, parking your car overnight, or I even said maybe, even though hunting's allowed in these areas, maybe you don't fire your gun within 100 feet of the parking area or something like that. So we might ask the Trails Committee to take a look, and if we were to put a sign up, not saying we're gonna, but if we were to put a sign up, what's the rules around, besides don't throw trash, what's the rules around using the parking areas? So that, we can sort of hang our hat on it. So if Anthony or any of the officers respond because people are making a lot of noise, at 10 o'clock at night, they could say, look, you're not allowed to do that. This is the ordinance.
I think that sounds good, especially the no shooting anywhere near, but also no parking after dark. It's just, I don't think that's been an issue because people don't hike after
Well,
dark. But
I did bring up, maybe in the winter you might go snowshoeing looking for owls, so there might be something going on, but typically
or
not.
a full moon.
Yeah, so, but, I think the Trails Committee might be willing to come up with some simple rules and then ask Anthony to look at them and see if that would be an appropriate for an ordinance.
Yeah, you could even, to solve the problem of the owls or the full moon nighttime, establish some protocol for checking in, checking out, signing in, signing out. I don't know, how that works.
Maybe, we can ask the Trails Committee, yeah.
Sure, but that's their work.
Yeah,
Again, I'm going to stress, though, that we've never had this conversation about an ordinance because we've never had a problem.
Right.
It's never come up that it's something that we've looked into because of noises or because of vehicles after dark. Over the years, we've had nothing but responsible individuals using the trail.
All right.
okay, good. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank
Are
you.
we all set? Yeah?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Next item is really a brief update on the wastewater committee. We had put it, I think, on this meeting, because we were hoping to have Wayne Elliott give us a full report. He's leading the committee. He's our design engineer. But I think we're going to have it at the next meeting, the 15th,
Yeah, that was the
hopefully.
plan. This is just a little update to the rest of the board.
So I'm on that committee, and I asked Renee if it would be all right if I gave a quick little update on some of the highlights. So I'll do that. We've been meeting, I don't know, 4 or 5 months. 4 or 5 months. We probably met maybe 6 or 7 times, plus we had 3 visits to different wastewater treatment plants, from Queechee to South Burlington to Waterbury, each of different designs. Very interesting. So some of the basic information. The reason we're moving forward is because the town was issued a new wastewater permit by the state Agency of Natural Resources. We were due for a new permit. I don't know if it's every 10 years or whatever. And so in this new permit, we were specifically given new limits for phosphorus, significant reductions, and ammonia, which we hadn't had limits for. Our consultant, design firm, said that with our existing lagoon system, we could not meet both of these. We could conceivably try to fix one, the ammonia or the phosphorus, with like a little add-on, but to try to do both would be it wouldn't work. So that, and it's also important to note, and I will say this every time this comes up, that we are moving forward to meeting this permit regardless of our capacity. So we could stay at exactly the same capacity we have now, and we're going to have to put in infrastructure, put in a system to meet the new permit. Even if we cut it in half, we couldn't meet the new permit with our existing lagoon system. The lagoon system is a very good system, works very, very well. It's very forgiving. It has a large capacity, doesn't take a lot of maintenance. It can kind of be ignored for a little bit because it's very forgiving. It has a lot of capacity. As things move through the lagoon, it's very slow moving through. And it's done well, and it does meet good phosphorus limits. We have fairly strict phosphorus limits right now, but the new permit is significantly more. our Wayne Elliott from, what's the name of it?
Aldrich and Elliott.
Aldrich and Elliott, had us look at 3 different options for treatment. Those are the different systems we looked at. They're more active. Lagoons are passive, let's say. These are more active and faster flow through. So smaller capacity, faster flow through. He also performed some geotechnical studies of the area. We briefly looked at because the area is not a very good place to put buildings and structure because it's all clay. So we did have some discussions, well, maybe we move the wastewater treatment plant to a place where you could put some structure. We decided, after looking a little bit, it didn't seem like there was a better place to put it. So we have to deal with the soils there. And the solution that Aldrich and Elliott came up with is wick drains, which drain the moisture out, compact the soils. It'll take 6 or 9 months, and then we could put some structure on it, like tanks, and they won't sink. The cost of just dealing with the geotechnical is about 15% of the overall cost. So it adds significant cost. Today, we don't have to deal with it. We really don't have any structures there. There's a small building, few things, but
Cinder block building,
Yeah.
pretty much.
yeah. We don't have tanks that, are very heavy. We have large lagoons that they can sink a little bit. It doesn't matter.
Clay is great for.
Yeah. We would add some headworks to it, which is when the sewage gets there, it's a screening method. And basically, it's a fancy screen. And because you've got to do far better screening for the new systems that we would need versus the lagoons. It doesn't bother the lagoons if, pieces of plastic and things like that, which come through the sewer, unfortunately, end up there. So we would have to add a headwork screening, which is an addition. We'd keep our existing pump station, the one on 116 next to the fire department. So the sewage pretty much goes there and then it gets pumped over. We'd keep that. May need to be improved a little bit, but it's adequate. The outlet would be in about the same spot on the La Platte. There'll be some final treatment infrastructure. Also, what we're looking at is any system, more active system, will require more labor. So it could be up to 1 full-time person, additional full-time person. And the costs are, it can easily reach $10 million or more. So it's significant cost. It would be the biggest project ever done by this town. So we had a lot of sticker shock on that. They are now looking at really trying to finalize the costs and looking at what funding is available. What's driving this is the permit changes. I think some facts are out there that say the amount of phosphorus getting into Lake Champlain coming from all the sewage treatment plants going into the lake is 4%. So out of that, we're a much smaller percent of that, and we could be investing, over $10 million to try to incrementally reduce that. There's some things happening at the state right now. They're getting money for water quality, and they're making some decisions where to invest it. Will they invest it in stormwater, in helping farmers, people putting in wastewater treatment plants? So we'll want to be active in that conversation. And I'm planning to contact David Zuckerman and our representative Bill Lippert and say, look at the difficult position Hinesburg's being put in.
I think you wanted to invite them for the next meeting.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right. We did want to
Yes.
invite them, yes. and to have that
And
discussion.
Peter Welch brought that up when he visited
Yeah.
us
Conversation we
too.
had with him. That's
So,
interesting.
you know, I think everybody wants good water quality, you know, in Lake Champlain, no question about it. I think this board, at least myself, you know, has noted that maybe, you know, this isn't the best place to invest your money.
Right.
And so,
So Phil, I have a question. That area where the lagoons are now is an area that gets flooded when we have a lot of rain. It wasn't too long ago we were worried about cows drowning nearby. So has that been taken into consideration? Because from all predictions, that's going to happen more often and more severely.
right, so, Wayne Elliott, you know, when they looked at whether this is the right spot, took that into consideration, so, and the state would too, because they don't want to see us get flooded, and, you know, send sewage down the river or ruin our equipment, so that's being taken into account,
Okay.
so.
So do we know about, I don't need an exact number, but you said the phosphorus is significant, the, you know, amount is significantly lower that we're allowed to release, right?
It goes down, yeah.
Is it about 50% more strict, 100%, 200% more strict? Do we have a guess?
I
should know
don't,
that.
yeah, and I'm not pulling that off right now. As the
Because I
number
knew
can get back
ammonia
to you.
was net
Yeah.
new, and we have nothing
Brand
to
new.
do with that, but
Right.
I know we were talking a lot about, okay, well, there's this ammonia count, and it could be a little bit, or it could be crazy, and I know we were waiting for some of these numbers to come in to see how strict it was gonna be. And so it sounds like we're looking at 3 options of treatment, or we're
So,
kind of
and
narrowing
those
it
numbers,
into.
those numbers are
They're
in.
defined.
I don't-
Yeah.
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 And that would be a good thing for us to say, okay, you know, it's a mass balance that we're allowed to discharge, it's not a concentration, it's so many pounds a day, or, you know, fractions of a pound per day of phosphorus that's allowed. And the ammonia, I think, is a concentration at the middle of the summer, at the lowest flow in the La Platte, you know, because that's when the ammonia would be a problem. But go ahead.
And I believe they're testing at the output site, or are they just testing randomly in the river, in the La Platte?
Go ahead.
Do we know?
So there's, I think they test, you know, at our discharge is
Yeah.
where we sample, but they have to go 2,000
Further down.
Right.
feet down, and, you know, do estimates of that too. So there's a lot to coming up with these numbers.
And one final one, I don't want to take all the time, but when looking at the type of treatment that we needed, now that we know the numbers and how, you know, clean, if you will, the water has to be before it leaves the plant, I know if we do no more build out, we still have to do this. Totally get it. But have we also looked at, okay, well, what are the build out options? Because I would assume that would drive the size of the treatment plant, right? If we're saying I'm going to have
I think
500
Wayne-
more houses, I
Wayne-
just, you know, we're going to have
Wayne,
to readdress this later.
As part of the study, we looked at, we're now permitted at 250,000 gallons
Mm-hmm.
a day. And in these options, we also priced out what would it be to be 318 or something like that.
Or something like that.
Yeah, 308, which is the max, you know, to of where we would be for development. And so while that didn't steer necessarily the decision, we wanted to understand that.
Yeah.
I think the proposal will include, if we wanted to go to that, here's what it is. And it's an incremental
Right.
difference,
Yeah.
not, you know, it's it doesn't change the technology we would use.
Okay, so even, well, I'll wait until we get more information, but
Right.
it sounds like it's one of those cases is you could put it in this way and then, oops, it's just an incremental. It's not like we got to,
Yeah, but I
Rebuild
would
a whole
think if
new
we
solution.
chose to go to the higher level, we would go for it. You wouldn't, you know, you wouldn't, you'd size the pumps and you'd size everything for it, and the tanks. But the tanks may be the same size for both.
I know I'm getting ahead of myself. The other concern I know that came up, which we don't have a lot of control over, is with the Hannaford plan. You know, if it's building on the old regs, what does that do?
That has nothing to do, so that's
That has nothing to
stormwater,
do
this is
with-
wastewater.
Right.
Okay. We're
So
just
they
talking
have a
wastewater.
wastewater permit now,
Okay.
and,
So we're not worried about stormwater
Right.
and what that does. That doesn't affect the ammonia runoff or anything like that getting into the Platte. Forget
No.
about what we discharge, but in the river.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it doesn't have anything to do with our permit. Maybe indirectly, I guess, the
Right.
quality of the river, but, I think that would be a stretch.
'Cause I think I remember somebody from the state came to talk about it, and obviously the further up the river you go, the less, if you're down at the shore, you've got a way bigger problem because everybody's feeding down. So I'm
Well,
just
yeah,
concerned.
I mean, and so that was looked at too. Potentially, I mean, if you could put a long enough pipe and put it right into the lake, our permit limits might be more. Because we're not discharging into a river that's not a very big river, and in the middle of the summer is much smaller, so therefore, that's the target, is the assumption that the river is very small. So and as you go farther down, there's more
Yeah.
streams feeding it, it gets a little bigger. So that was looked at, as, is it worthwhile putting the pipe 2,000 feet down the river? And in the end, it determined, no, that just isn't cost effective and wouldn't buy us anything. There's no advantage there.
So
And
good.
Mostly disadvantage.
We looked at different angles and
Right.
thought
Yeah.
of different things and
Yeah.
are covered there. It's just,
Yeah.
Yeah. I've
it's frustrating
Yeah.
that 4% that we're stuck with
Yes.
this huge bill,
Right.
and
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
just
So there'll be a lot, going forward. We'll understand the design and some of the decision points we have that, have taken place, some of the decisions. And then, moving forward, if the end game is a new wastewater treatment plant, well, there's steps to get there, including a bond vote, understanding the costs, understanding how much would come from the users, how much would come from allocation of new developers. Do we need to adjust any of our allocation costs? Would that be appropriate? Then the bond vote is done by the entire town because the entire town takes on the bond and the responsibility to pay for it. But the entire town, but the costs don't have to be, it can be done a couple ways. It could be just the users pay, or we could decide we're going to ask the entire town to pay, or somewhere in between. Typically, and this is my opinion from what I understand, bonds that require everyone in the town to pay, even though only they're not on the sewer system, people tend to vote no.
Even though they benefit from
Even though they benefit, we can make a good argument for that.
and even though some of their land runs along the river that gets
Oh yeah,
check for
or
phosphorus and everything else.
and I would like to look at that closely, because even if you have your own septic system, you do benefit from the commercial and the schools and everything here. So there is some benefit there. But typically these pass when everyone gets to vote, but not everyone has to pay. So that's just the fact. So those are all the things we'll need to talk about and look at when a possible bond vote could be and what are all the steps. This would be a 3-year process. Just doing the wick drains was 9 months just of that process. So get ready.
Where are we with regards to what's legally required of us by the state in hitting
Good,
deadlines?
good idea. So they've been attending the meetings and watching us closely, and at this point, doesn't seem to be any problem where, they understand where we are in the process. Typically like things to move faster, but I think so far we're in fine shape.
They know we're
with them.
actively working.
Yeah.
And there was the geotechnical issue, and now
Yeah.
the wick drains will, if that's the
If
path
we
we
move
end up
forward,
going.
yeah.
And that counts for something, you're saying, in their eyes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they seem to be reasonable that because we are being diligent here. I think, I didn't plan to talk about it, but 6 months or 9 months ago, we did have a permit violation due to what looked like biological oxygen demand was gone really high and caught us off guard. And we suspected some businesses, primarily the brewers in town, maybe Vermont Smoke and Cure, maybe the dairy. So we did bring a consultant in, Andy?
No, Randy.
Randy, that's close. That's pretty good for me. And he's done a great job, and we had a couple of meetings about that, and they've approached all these businesses, and we're making very good progress. So we're really happy. They're, at this point, very cooperative, and we're seeing great results. There's more work to do, but generally very positive.
I think it's
so.
been very beneficial on both sides, for the town and for the businesses. As Phil said, they've been very cooperative. They've also really wanted to make sure that they're doing it right. And so I think they've learned some new practices from Randy, our consultant, that they welcome, and they actually made those changes very quickly and seeing huge benefits from it.
Yep, and yeah, so they benefit, and basically it's just putting in best practices. And, I think at the end of it, depending on where we are, we might look at our ordinance and decide, if we need to do anything to it. Maybe we do, maybe we don't, I don't know. But, I think so far it's been very cooperative with our local businesses, and that's how we went into it, saying, hey, we got a little problem, and, let's put our heads together and come up with good solutions. So that's a positive story. I think that's it.
All right.
Thank you, Phil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell I like this stuff? All right. Next item, item 5, consider approving Concentra as our designated medical provider for work-related injuries. Do you want to talk about this?
So I think I've talked to you about in the past, our safety committee have looked at different things, and as far as our insurer, it would be in our best interest to have a designated medical provider. We did try to work with UVM, our Hinesburg Family Health. They just aren't currently equipped for it right now. So we moved our focus to Concentra, which is located in South Burlington off of Shelburne Road. They are set up for this purpose. They do this with other towns, with other businesses. And so if there is a work-related injury, we would send that staff member to Concentra. They would identify themselves as a Town of Hinesburg employee, and then they would take it from there. They'll have all of our job descriptions, and they have the capacity there they have occupational therapists, physical therapists to work with the employee and get them back, and so that they can return to work as soon as possible. So I think it'll be a good benefit for the town and help for our insurance too. So
I mean, this is very typical for businesses to find a medical provider, so that, obviously, emergency, people go to the hospital. But if you you might need a few stitches, or you hurt your back a little bit, or sprained your ankle, you go here. They are specific to work-related type injuries and return to work strategies to get you back to work, understanding the jobs, and therefore what limitations you might have, and finding ways to work with the town and the employee with the injury. And so it is a good approach.
yeah.
So do we need a motion to do
Yeah,
that?
so we just make a motion to approve them as our designated medical provider.
I could do that if you like. So moved.
Okay. Any more discussion? And they're in South Burlington
South Burlington,
on...
off of Shelburne Road.
Okay, yeah. All right, so that's a good thing, and they now know we're part of them, and it would be written in our procedures or whatever, if somebody
Right.
needed some medical attention, that would be the first place.
Joy and
It's
I-
not the only place. If it
Right.
doesn't work out, they can go somewhere else, but,
Joy and I did tour the facility, we met with the staff, and
great.
they really are set up very well for this, so.
great. All right, all those in favor of approving Concentra as our Hinesburg's designated medical provider for work-related injuries, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that passed. All right, town administrator report.
All right, so,
This hour?
think you've seen in the DRB agenda, the new owners of the former Quinn property are proposing some development off of Mechanicsville Road and CVU Road. So I did receive a call from them. They're interested in discussing with the town, offering a portion of the land to the town. But more discussion needs to take place, and as far as timing and when this happens, and if it was something that the town really would find that would be worthwhile to pursue.
And is this the piece of property next to the cemetery?
Yeah. That's the Quinn property.
No, I know, but I think
Right.
the piece that they were
So the-
looking at
Oh.
I
was
think it's-
adjacent to that,
I
right?
think it's, what I understood is on, next to the, where the goes into the canal, the river along
Oh,
there.
okay.
So it's a little bit along that stream bank, and then also up on the hill,
Okay.
there's a portion. But again, I need to talk with Mitch, get some more information on it, and if there's something that we need to come back to the board, we will. But
Okay.
at this
And maybe
point,
the
it's-
Trails Committee or whoever, if it's that type of
Yeah.
property, they might look at it.
Did we
See
ever
what-
approve the new official map? Sorry, it's been so
No,
convoluted.
the
No,
process
no,
is
it's
moving
pro-
forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we agreed to move the process forward.
Safety committee did our walkthrough, so each month we meet, and this time of year, we're doing walkthrough inspections of all of our town buildings. This was the highway garage. Yeah, as expected, a new building. It was in great
So
shape.
it
So
it did better than the old building?
it, by far, and if you had to go to the bathroom, you didn't have to climb over equipment to do so. So, no,
Good.
it was in good shape, and all was in good order. We also had our monthly department head meeting, and, it was, I think I stopped it at one point and said, you know what, this is why we do this. There was just wonderful communication happening, this transfer of between departments who are not located physically next to each other and don't have always that opportunity to interface. There was this wonderful conversation happening based on the development. So we start the meeting off with an update from planning and zoning, what's new, and then highway has a chance to talk about that, police, fire, and so that they're kind of getting that feedback early on. And it was very evident of this is why we do it, and I think people saw it. It was very valuable. Chief Cambridge was there. He was able to really give some input on things, and it was well worth it.
Great. That's great.
Also, as I talked to the staff and you, I think it's time to start planning for the FY21 budget process. Hard to believe, here we are again already. But I would like to start that earlier this year, especially with our meeting schedule, depending on if we're staying with the Wednesday nights, or if we're going back to Mondays. If we're staying with the Wednesdays, we can't do the meeting every week because we also conflict with the planning or the planning commission. So we could only do the first and third Wednesdays of the month through budget season rather than
I
first,
anticipate going back to
second,
Mondays
third, and fourth.
as
Yeah.
much as I want a different day.
We could move upstairs, couldn't we? If we wanted to meet every week.
If we wanted to meet every week, it could be a challenge for VCAM to be doing downstairs and upstairs. We still would have some issues. So regardless, I still would like to start the process earlier and to be really thinking about looking at the capital needs, thinking about that, really developing that before we kind of dive into the budget. So this is, we started, when I started in 2017, we talked about doing, you guys adopting a different department. And so we did a 2-year cycle. So we've now completed that 2-year cycle. Now it's time to choose a different
Yeah.
department
Good.
to work with through the budget
Yeah.
season. So Jeff, this is gonna be new to you, but, so each select board member chose, found a different department they worked with, and then throughout the budget season, you met with, you take that opportunity to meet with that department head, get to know the department, and be part of those budget meetings with me and the department head.
You guys are gonna stick me with the tough one, aren't you?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Absolutely, there's some sort of initiation level.
Town administrator's office,
Yes, absolutely, that will be good, so,
the real bear.
absolutely.
One thing, what which might be nice, is at the very beginning in September, let's say, we have, as part of our meeting, an open agenda where anyone in town could come in and say, here are the things we think we should be focusing on. And maybe it's, hey, the Richmond Road walkway, or it's improved sidewalks, or it's more road work, or less road work, or we need a fire department,
Line stripe.
building. Yeah, whatever it might be. And just, whoever wants to come, and we could sort of tease it of like, this is your chance to say what direction you want the town to move in, just to get some, chance to have some input and for us to hear it. And
And of
You
course,
know.
you make that suggestion knowing that at any select board meeting, at any time.
that's true.
Right.
They
Yeah.
can come
But
and
I
do
think
that.
that's a great idea, and put it on Front Porch Forum, maybe
Survey or
have,
something.
Yeah.
with it.
have Joe Iadonza make desserts.
Yeah.
There you
And we
go.
do have those things identified in the town plan. There's some action
That's
items
true,
and some
yes.
things. So you
Yeah,
can also
and
be
that way-
taking a look at the
That's
town
right.
plan.
We should be looking
right,
at that.
yeah.
Yep.
So that
Yeah.
we're trying to coordinate some of that. So those
Just
aren't
so
just a
we're-
document that sits there, but we
Right.
actually are going
Right.
back to it. And
Right, because
Those
that
kinds
was
of stuff.
supposed to be a public meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a a good point that we already have some of these ideas, and again, in front of the process to sort of hear what people are thinking. I think what happens is we get our heads down and we start looking at how many pounds of salt to buy,
Right.
and we don't have a discussion of how much salt should we be using, just for example. So.
And, yeah, so if you can be thinking about that, last year I asked you, what are your priorities? What are things that you want me to pass on to the department heads? And last year was a focus on the buildings. I mean, that was something
Right.
that I really wanted to, be maintaining what we have. And so that was, their marching orders as they were preparing their budgets to be also including that. So I think that's still important. And if there's anything else that you want to add to that, something for me to pass on to them,
Okay.
let me know.
I'm gonna at select board forum. I'm gonna bring something up which kind of fits
Okay.
into that. So.
All right. And the only other thing I had was an update on the Village North sidewalk, once again. So, good news.
It's
There's,
built, right?
well, maybe someday I'll get to say that. Not today. But the new poles are up. The old poles are still there.
Yeah.
And some of the new lines, some of the new
Yeah.
utilities are moved to the new ones, but not all. So we're still working on, with some utility companies to get their lines moved, and hopefully within the next couple of weeks. Once those lines are moved, then Parker Excavating
so
can
they're-
come in and start.
They're anxious to get it done
They
this
are,
year. Yeah. Okay.
yes.
So that's good. So hopefully we can move forward. Thank you
Yeah.
for championing that for
So
us.
that is
Ongoing.
ongoing, but that's all I have.
All right. Any other questions for Renee?
No.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And we didn't say, but thank you for working through the problem of the trailhead and talking to the neighbor and trying to work through that. So appreciate you doing that. Last time we met, we discussed that, hey, the town should take the lead, and you took the lead on that. Next item is Select Board Forum.
I can speak to the ambulance committee. We're really excited about the progress that's been made so far with what has come out of our discussions at the committee level. And Marilee and I, as select board members on that committee, are also really feeling hopeful with the select board's recent decision to move forward with bringing in professional help to bring the process to a very good solution that fits for our town. We quickly found that it's a much bigger question than just simply what we
A, B,
thought.
or C.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what we thought moving into it. And to that, with that most recent action by the select board to bring in and make that decision to have someone help with this professionally who can really put some hours into this instead of simply after hours meetings by both interested and educated participants to really steer this in the manner in which its importance deserves and really demands. Marilee and I have spoken a little bit about that path moving forward. We anticipate that we're going to have some amount of resolution on a direction to go with regards to that decision the select board made to bring somebody in. And at our next meeting, select board meeting, we'll have probably in front of you, Marilee and I, some items to consider that is coming out of those discussions. So there's a lot of steam that's been built up, and it's being now directed in a really good, productive direction, and we're getting a really clear concept of what it is we have to tackle here. And there's kind of two things. There's two problems in front of us, two puzzles to figure out. One is, what do we do in July 1st of 2020? And what are we doing beyond, whatever beyond is for our town based on whatever July 1st, 2020 is. And there's really two things to figure out there. And we'll have more for you as a board, as a whole, as to, how to go about answering those questions at our next meeting.
Did you want to add anything, Marilee, or does that sound good?
Nope, that's accurate.
All right. I'll just add a little to it. I think you said you built up a head of steam here. I think that, and I'll acknowledge the fact that, we saw this problem in front of us. We have a short-term and a long-term problem. And I thought, well, if we get, a committee together and, they can work through some of the questions and, present some suggestions or some recommendations, both short and long-term recommendations, that would be good. But I think, even though I'm from the sidelines, I can see that there are a lot of opinions about this, some very strong opinions in the town. Obviously, our fire department, has their idea on how to move forward based on their desire to serve the people in town. It is an appropriate approach. There are others have different ideas and different ways to go about this, different ways to skin the cat, and I think we want to make sure that in the end, because not everyone, like anything else in town, is going to be totally satisfied with how we end up, that the process is as good and as strong as possible, so that at the end, all the questions are asked, all the information's gathered, and the best decision is made. And we wouldn't want anyone to feel the decision was influenced or swayed by anybody on the select board or anybody else, that it's, based on good information with input from the town. So I appreciate you doing that, and I think moving forward with a consultant who is unbiased and can help us, that have gone through this process before and understand, all the rugs to look under to make sure we expose everything, and then we make the best decision. And more than likely, it's going to impact all the people in town, and it probably will have some cost impact, but in the end, hopefully, we'll end up with even a better medical response to emergencies than we have now. And so, good.
Thank you, Phil. Well articulated.
All right, more on the select board forum?
I have one.
You have something.
Uh,
You don't mention, I will.
So first, thanks for doing the ambulance committee. It sounds like it's a challenging committee to be a part of, so that's good.
You learn
But
a
usually
lot.
the challenging ones are the important ones,
You
right?
learn a lot.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's the pop-up park, but I just
That's what
wanted
I was
to.
going to say.
Yeah.
If you didn't mention it, I
Yeah,
would.
so Alex sent out a front porch forum today, just reminding everybody, but it's just 4 to 7. I think it was originally they thought it would be all day. They shrank it down, which is good because it's going to be rather hot. But a lot of fun activities, so should try to go out there and check it out and see. I think it's going to be interesting. So
And,
At lot 1.
and,
lot one, yeah, over by the.
And I think there'll be ice cream because I've been asked to see if I can provide some spoons. So we'll have plenty of spoons for ice cream. We'll get the
That's awesome.
big spoons. Yeah, so that's going to be a great event. Looks like the weather's
Yeah.
going to be good.
Yeah.
And that's Saturday from 4 to 7.
4 to 7 p.m.
And there's food trucks
There's
and
music, there's food
activities.
The big blue truck guy over
Yeah,
there.
this'll be, yeah, it should be fun. Good. Anything else from,
Well, speaking of news, this probably, I don't know, anyway, I read in the Citizen that somebody in the circle got a promotion, and that was Jeff French.
oh, yeah,
Put that in there.
yeah.
That didn't surprise me.
So,
Are you serious?
at C2 where you
Yeah.
work,
I assumed it
yeah?
was
Yeah,
you.
yeah. It
Good.
happened like 6 months ago, but okay.
Yeah.
But thanks.
And so
Yeah,
I have a few items. One is I did reach out to Lynn Gardner from last meeting about the metal. It was an email. I haven't gotten anything back, but then today I was like, oh, I better check on that. So I'll continue to check on that. That's where we think maybe CSWD was going to eliminate the metal drop off because we have one in town, and we just, there was a question by a citizen saying,
I thought Lynn responded to you and said that they had been in contact with Burnett's.
oh,
and-
you're right, he
And
did.
Burnett said that they would be very happy to take small amounts
Mm-hmm.
of scrap metal.
Maybe you're right. Maybe I did get that email. Anyways, I'll follow up more and be able to report better than I have so far.
Yes, it really
If
is
for no
summer.
reason for yourself.
That was over a week ago. Come on.
Actually,
think
Phil,
you're
I was
right.
reading in the
Yeah.
Citizen the
Yeah.
other day.
The second thing is Lyman Meadows. We did inform those folks there that were willing to supply the culverts. They agreed they would let Mike Anthony, if he had time, to just, make sure the installation is correct, and that they would contact the school district to make sure their work doesn't conflict with the overall goal. So that's moving forward. And the one thing, which is sort of a budget thing and something I've been thinking about and worrying about, whether it's climate change or whatever, and I'm going to talk to the Energy Committee about looking at the town-wide energy budget and see if we can't, as a town, come up with a goal. Maybe it's 10% reduction in total energy consumption or carbon or, now different groups of the town are working things, but it might be that people in town might like to have a town-wide goal and something we work to. And during the budget, it's part of our budget. And so anyways, I'm going to talk to them. Just I wanted to let everybody know that I've been thinking it's something we should do as a town.
Yeah, thank you, Phil.
In the end, it would save money, I think, but it's something everybody's going to need to do. And so anyways, I think the town might be willing to get behind that kind of thing.
Thank you. I just read a new study that said that with the Arctic ice melting, things are speeding up faster than had been predicted, maybe by 25 years, which would be 2020, 2030.
Yeah.
So the faster we can get these goals in place, that would be great.
Okay. And then the last thing is, would we consider delaying our next meeting by, say, a half an hour? And the only reason I'm saying is that the Trillium Farm is having their annual event,
Oh, I didn't
which
know
starts
that.
at 6, and I did want to try to participate a little bit.
Talking August 15th?
Yes.
That works for me.
They have, they're gonna have a little trail run through their, property, and then they have, I think they're gonna have burgers and stuff. But it's quite a good community event, and it's right across the street.
Yeah, in the past, they've had pizza with that big
Yeah.
oven.
Yeah, so,
7:30.
I don't know, I look at the select board, is that,
Yeah, I'm okay with, I mean, I have the whole evening blocked off,
you
so.
could show up at 7:29.
Yeah, that's fine. Or 8:30 or 9. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd still, whenever you want to start is fine with me.
Jeff, would that be?
I'm open and
Well,
accommodating.
we'll have to look to see how much, I think, let's maybe say that might work.
Okay.
But we'll look at the agenda, and if the agenda starts to get really full, then, pleasing my social calendar may not be as important.
Or we could just meet over there.
We could, yeah.
Pull up what I have on there for right now, anyway.
Is there such a thing as a remote select board meeting, or at least in part,
I think so.
to be held there?
Right now I have the alarm ordinance.
Yeah?
Aldrich and Elliott's presentation, and then potentially the Black Rock things maybe on there.
That would be the
But
easement
that's-
for the well. Yeah.
Yes, that's possible. However, I know they're doing the camera, and it sounded like I just saw an email from Eric this afternoon that that Frost's camera broke or something, so they have to get a different one, which is going to be a little more high tech, which will give them more information actually. So I don't know if we'll have enough information yet for that next meeting, but we'll see.
It doesn't look overwhelming right now, but,
No, right.
So I would think within about a week, we could make a final decision. We'll say it will be 7:30, but, when the final agenda comes out, that'll set it.
Yeah.
Great, that would be helpful. I think that's it then for Select Board Forum. Next item is to review the minutes from 7:18. We have a copy in front of us. We have a motion.
I have a motion to accept the minutes as presented with any amendments needed in our discussion.
Second? Okay. Any comments or,
I just had one grammatical thing that would make it more clear, and that's under consider approving annual allocation pool designation. Second paragraph, the board reviewed, and then the next sentence, discussed was the fact that with the reserve, we have no available water to allocate in category 3 instead of we having no available. That's all.
change having to
To have,
have, that
yeah.
one there?
Yeah, you already did it.
No, I saw that. That was,
And
so-
and on the other side of the page, we want to change that number so it's correct.
no, I think we would leave it there, because that's the motion, and
Okay.
then we've made
Yeah, we
another motion,
attended
right?
This meeting. as
This,
well.
the minutes will reflect that.
Okay, great.
Any other comments to the minutes?
None for me.
All right, all those in favor with that one slight change, say aye.
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 Aye, so we passed the minutes. Consider approving the warrants.
I'll make a motion to consider approving the warrants as it's not yours.
I don't have, we don't have, we'll get the copy of them.
As presented
Yeah.
by the clerk in the other room, which I'm gonna go see here in a
We'll go
moment.
there, yeah.
Is there gonna be over there? To include payroll.
Second it.
All right, so it's seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye?
Aye. So the next item will be consider going into executive session. Again, the purpose for executive session is a legal issue. Our counsel, David Rue, who's been working with Hannaford's and represents the town on this, has asked, presented some questions for the select board to decide how to move forward. And so releasing this information, our discussion and consideration in public could put us at jeopardy, since it is a ongoing court issue. So we would have the select board four of us, Joy and Renee be included. Tom did sort of weigh in a little bit on his thoughts on this too, so we could discuss.
And no staff
discuss
member
that. No, we don't need a
that is
staff.
present?
No,
No, okay.
no, so that would be it. So we would need two motions.
You read them, I'll make them.
Okay. We're so bad at this. I think we're
Not,
pretty
you're well
good.
organized, honestly.
First motion is to find premature public discussion on this legal issue would put the municipality at a substantial disadvantage.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And then the second motion would be that we would move to go into executive session, including Renee and Joy, to discuss the town's legal, ongoing legal issues associated with Hannaford's under the Title I, Section 313A1A of the Vermont statutes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so Ken, we would end the broadcast. And again, if the select board was to take any actions, they would need to come out of executive session and take those actions, and those would be reflected in our minutes.